Now, Chapter 10, Nouns and Adjectives, the absolute state, and the syntax of adjective with nouns. Starting in Chapter 10, we're really looking at the forms, or the morphology, of nouns and adjectives. And when we come to nouns and adjectives in Hebrew, they have gender, they have number, and they have something called state. State refers to either, the word is either in the absolute state or the construct state. If the word's in the absolute state, it can stand independently or absolutely on its own. When a word is in construct, it's constructed onto another word, or it's connected with another word. And so the term state may be a little foreign to English speakers. When we talk about Hebrew nouns, if you look at section 2 of chapter 10, generally speaking, there are two types of nouns. There's the nouns that we call seglet nouns, and these are nouns that originally had one vowel, at least in the singular. But this excludes the monosyllabic nouns if you look at the footnote down below. Then you have what we call non-seglet nouns. This is nouns with originally more than one vowel, and it could be a short vowel, it can be a long vowel, but it's usually more than one vowel. So we want to keep those distinctions in mind. We will do seglet nouns when we get to chapters 15 and 16, but for now we really want to look at non-seglet nouns. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to look at the masculine and feminine singular absolute here in section 3. Now, when we're talking about a masculine singular absolute, there's nothing really that you add to the end of the word. But when we come to the feminine singular absolute, there is something that we will add to the end of the word. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have something called a box, and then we're going to have the ending. And the ending for the feminine singular absolute is this. We're going to have a box here, and for the box, we're going to have the last letter of the root of the noun or the adjective to be placed in the box. Then you're going to have the accent mark on top of it. You're going to have a kametz with a final hey. This will be the box that we will attach to a word in the feminine singular absolute. And then from there, we will apply the rules that we learned back in chapter 6, those rules of syllables and the proto-rules and so forth. So with that said, first we look at a masculine singular absolute, and we look at a word like navi. On this particular word, if we were to take it back into a Proto-Hebrew, of course the hirik yod is a historic long vowel, and therefore there'll be no change there. The kametz, of course, originally goes back to a patach, but when we apply the rules of biblical Hebrew, it's an open pretonic syllable. That's why it's a long kametz. With the masculine singular absolute, there's no box to place on the noun, and so there's not going to be any change. But when we go to the feminine singular absolute, again, this time we will attach a box. But the steps we want to follow when we do these things is you'll see the steps at the end of section 3. At the very end of section 3, you'll see attaching the feminine singular absolute boxes, and there's a 3-step process. And every time you do this, you really want to follow these 3 steps the same way every time, and that'll aid in memorization, and it'll aid in working it. And so the first thing you want to do is restore the form to the proto-form. Again, the hirik yod is historic long. That's the same in proto-world. And the kametz, of course, will go back to a patach. The next step is you want to attach the box. And so the box is going to be like that with the accent over it. Then you're going to have the long kametz with the final hey. Now, what's very important is you put that accent with the box, because the shifting of the accent is very important as we apply the rules of phonology to this word. So now, if we were to divide the syllables would look like this. And so we see that you never change this box. And therefore, this box overrides the rules of syllables, so don't try to do any type of rule here. The box is going to stay like it is. But now your pretonic syllable is pretonic open. It requires a long vowel. Of course, you have a historic long And so there it is. That would override anything anyway. But now the patach is in the originally open pro-pretonic position. And so short vowels are subject to destruction. And so you'll get a vocal schwa, and of course then you'd have to wipe out this syllable division, because now the vocal schwa is simply going to attach with the bait and hirik yod combination to form a syllable. And so this would be your answer, nevi'ah, like this for the feminine, singular absolute. Now, if you'll look at the adjectives that's given here, I'm going to work one of those adjectives. We will look at this word. We're looking at chacham here, and what we want to do is attach the feminine singular absolute to it. And so the first thing we want to do, again, is restore the protoform. And when you restore the protoforms, the kametzes must become patachs, like this. The next thing we want to do is attach the box, and when we do that I need to turn around this final mem so it's no longer final now. And so we'll put the box on it with the accent, and then the kametz, and then the final hey that goes there. And now, again, as we divide the syllables, we're ready to go. And again, we'll never change the box. The box overrides all rules. And so now, under the kaf here, we have a pretonic open. Hebrew requires a long vowel. And now for the chet, it is now in the originally open pro-pretonic position. We're going to reduce the patach to a vocal schwa. But since we have a guttural, we're not going to get a simple vocal schwa. We're going to get a composite schwa. And again, the chetef patach is usually what we're going to get. And we will now get rid of that syllable line because, again, vocal schwa, even if it's composite, can never constitute a syllable. And so this, of course, attaches to the kaf kametz to form the syllable. And so that is the answer here. Okay, and again, I want to call your attention to the end of section 3 where I give you the 3-step process. It's very important. Restoring Proto-Hebrew vowels, attaching the box, and then working the rules of syllables. That's very important. We come to section 4 now, and we have some other boxes that we need to attach. We're looking at the masculine plural absolute and the feminine plural absolute. And for the masculine plural absolute, the box will look something like this. This is a final mem here. That's a box, and this is a final mem. So that is going to be the box for the masculine plural absolute. And for the feminine, the box will look like this. Ot here, with the accent again shifted down. And so again, we'll apply these boxes, and we'll follow the same 3 steps that we've done before. And so let's work a couple of them. Let's go again to the word prophet. We have the word, again, navi. And I'm going to go ahead and restore the protoform. You have a kametz under the nun. We'll make it a patach. And now we've done the first step. And again, the hirik yod, you don't mess with that. It's historic long. Now the next thing is we attach the box. And now we're doing a masculine plural absolute. And so the box looks like this. Again, we'll divide the syllables now. We'll never mess with the box, really. And then the pretonic open, Hebrew requires long. You've got the historic long, that's fine. But now, again, the nun is in the open pro-pretonic position. Again, that must be reduced. And once you do that, again, we need to get rid of this line. And so here is our answer. If you look at the word for eternities, let's just look at that very quickly. You have this word, olam, and it looks like this. Well, what we want to do is restore the protoform. Well, this holem vav, of course, is historic long, so you won't touch that. But there again is a kametz. Kametz goes back to patach, so we'll put the patach there. Now we want to add the box for the masculine plural absolute, and so we need to turn around the final mem so that it's no longer final. So we'll do that. And now we'll box it like this. Okay. We'll divide the syllables now. And now Under the lamed, we have a pretonic open, and so we're going to lengthen the patach to a long kametz because it's in the pretonic open. Hebrew requires long. And now we have the syllable over here, the first syllable. It is in the original pro-pretonic open, but we don't have a short vowel there. We have a historic long vowel which can never be touched, and therefore we're not going to touch it. There's going to be no reduction. If there were a short vowel, we could do reduction, and of course it would go to a composite schwa since you have an I in there. But as you see it here, you can't touch it because, again, it's historic long, and that overrides everything. Okay, so watch for that. Now let's go down and do one of the adjectives, and this time we'll do yashar. And again, the first step is to restore the protoforms. Kametzes go back to patach, so that's exactly what we do. Then we attach the box, and this time why don't we do a feminine plural absolute. So we'll do a different box here. Box with the accent, very important, and then the oat here at the end. Okay, now we're ready to crunch the rules. But first we will go ahead and divide the syllables. All right, now we're ready. Pretonic open, Hebrew requires long, we'll lengthen that one. But the other one is originally open pro-pretonic, and you have a short vowel. That's always a recipe for destruction. And so we're going to get reduction to a vocal schwa, and that's why I got rid of the syllable divider. And so this is your answer. So again, we have a three-step process here that we must follow. But when you come to 10.5, we have a different situation. When we come to section 10.5, most of your feminine singular absolutes end in a kametz hey, like this. Most Hebrew words that are feminine singular absolute end in this kametz hey, which really is the box that you've just learned. It's really the box. So when we want to put something like a feminine plural absolute ending onto a word like this, we've already got a box on there, and we don't want to put another box like this and put the oat on, like something like this. We don't want to do that. That's Hebrew trouble. We don't want that. The first thing we have to do when we have a feminine word ending with kametz hey, and again this would be accented really, is we've got to get rid of this box in order that we can put on the feminine plural absolute box. So the first step is get rid of the final kametz hey. That's the first step. Then the second, third, and fourth step are the other three steps that you've learned before. Namely, the first step is let's restore the proto-vowels, and so that original kametz will make it a patach. The next step is now we'll put the feminine plural absolute box on, like so, and now we'll simply crunch the rules. And so what we have here is a pretonic open. Hebrew is going to lengthen that. It requires it, and that's going to be our answer right there. So again, section 5 here is very important in that it's considering feminine nouns that are feminine singular absolute that already have a box on it. And in order to make it a feminine plural absolute, you've got to remove that box, and then you've got to, of course, restore the proto-vowel, add the new box, and then crunch the rules of accent. Remember, what's very important, of course, I put it in italics here in section 5. You've got to get rid of this accented kametz hey if it's already attached to a word. Okay, we've got to get rid of that in order to do it. Here's a great rule for you. Never put a hey in the box. If you put a hey in the box, it's going to be wrong. It's almost always wrong. So never put a hey in a box, and you're going to be in good shape. I guess if that hey had a mapik, then you may be able to get away with it. But if you ever see just a regular old hey out there, never box a hey. If you box a hey, it's going to be wrong. Okay, here's yet one more box for you to learn, and that's the masculine and feminine dual absolute. And the box for that looks like this. This is the box, and again, the last letter of the root will be put in the box. And so here's the box, and again, you have to memorize these boxes. And this is it for the dual. And you can look at the footnote for when the dual occurs in Hebrew. All right. Well, let's use a word like yad, the word for hand. And now we want to make it into a dual. And so the first step we want to do is restore the proto-vowels. And so again, kametz goes back to a patach. And now we want to attach the dual box. And so there we go. And now we want to crunch the rules. And now the yod and an open pretonic syllable has to lengthen to long kametz, and this is your answer. When you look at section 7, you can see the boxes, all the boxes that you've learned for this chapter. And again, it's very important that you memorize those boxes and have those down. When we come to section 8, we have the syntax of adjectives with nouns. When nouns and adjectives come together, as you're forming them for syntax, there's two types of adjectives that we really refer to. There's attributive adjectives and predicate adjectives. Or we could say it this way, an adjective used attributively and an adjective used predicatively. So when we talk about an attributive adjective, we're talking about an adjective that gives an attribute concerning a noun. So for instance, I say a good horse, a good mare. It's giving an attribute to the mare or the horse. He's a good one. And in English, of course, we put our adjectives before the noun. So we say, again, good horse, good mare. But in Hebrew, it's the other way around. They'll put the noun first, and then the attributive adjective will follow it. So they'll say a horse, a good one, or the horse, the good one. And so that's the way Hebrew is going to do an attributive adjective. The attributive adjective must agree with its noun in gender, number, and definiteness. By definiteness, I mean this. If the noun is definite, then the adjective must be definite. And so you got to remember that. They must agree on 3 levels. They must agree in their gender, number, and definiteness. And so that's very important. And so, again, I give you many examples of those, and I think those are pretty self-explanatory. Next is predicatively. When an adjective asserts something about a noun, this is what they call the predicate use of the adjective. And so here we're saying like the horse is good, the mare is good. We're making an assertion. We're predicating something about the noun, and the adjective is, and therefore we're making a certain statement. Again, Hebrew is going to usually not have the form of haya, was, is. And so we're going to have to supply that usually. And in English translation, of course, you'll have to supply some form of to be, is, was, will be, things like that. And here, the predicate adjective agrees with its noun. It agrees in gender and number, but not in definiteness. And that's very important. Whereas the attributive adjective agreed on 3 levels, gender, number, and definiteness. This is not true of the predicate adjective, or the adjective used predicatively. It only agrees on 2 levels, that is gender and number, but they don't agree in definiteness. And so as you see the examples, you have something like hasus tov, the horse good, the horse is good, and so forth. Now when we come to section 9, we have demonstrative adjectives. The word demonstrative has that idea of adjectives that point, like this or that. And so when we talk about demonstrative adjectives, again, they also can be attributive or predicate in their usage. And so you can see the examples I give you. And notice the plural, the word for these is common. In other words, it includes both masculine and feminine, where in the singular, of course, you have ze for this, masculine, and zot for this, feminine, but ele is these for both masculine and feminine. And so, again, this is this, like this here. And then the far demonstratives, that there, notice I have them with the article because normally when they're used as an attributive adjective, they have the article with them, and so I went ahead and put them on there. So first you can see the attributive use. So this horse, hasus haze, again, they agree in gender, number, and definiteness when you're doing the attributive use. You come down to the predicate use. Here, only the near demonstrative adjectives are used predicatively. And again, they're going to agree in gender and number, but once more, they're not going to agree in definiteness. And so if you want to say, this is the horse, ze hasus, and again, the word is, are, were, was, has to be supplied in English, and quite often in Hebrew, some form of the verb haya has to be also supplied. When you come to section 10, we talk about substantives. And what we mean by that is adjectives used as a noun. We can do this in English. We can take plural adjectives in English and use those as nouns. So we can say, like the example I give you here, the dead tell no tales. Well, we're talking about the dead people, the dead men tell no tales. And so the word dead here, being an adjective, is being used as a noun. And again, in English, we only do that in the plural. But in Hebrew, you can do it for the plural or the singular. It can work either way. And I give you two examples at the end of section 10. You can simply say hatov, and that means the good, and then man is implied there. It's masculine singular. Or hatovim, the good men. Now again, if you had the word men before it, then this would be simply an attributive adjective. The men, the good ones. But again, you don't have to say the word the men. You can just simply say hatovim, and people understand that you mean the good men. Okay. And then section 11, we have the accusative directive comments hey. And it's a box like this, but one major exception from the feminine singular absolute, and that is no accent here. Very important. No accent for the accusative directive comments hey. And so that's how you're going to tell the difference frequently between a feminine singular absolute noun adjective and a noun with the directive accusative hey on it. But the accusative directive hey is really used for a limited number of nouns and one adverb in particular, sham. And so if you look at the examples I give, you've got Egypt, Mitzrayim. And then when you add the, notice Mitzrayim is accented over the resh. But notice that when you put the accusative on it, that the accent keeps its spot. It does not move. It's not at the end of the word. It stays here, and you would pronounce this Mitzrayma. And so, again, the accent never goes with the comments hey here for the accusative directive hey. And so this means to or towards Egypt. And then you can see the same thing for house, bayit, and so you can say baita. Notice again how the accent does not shift down the word. Or you can say beta. And then for the word sea, you've got hayam, and then you say hayama. Notice, again, the accent does not shift down. And then you have the adverb sham, and you can say shamma. And again, you can see the translation. So the key that you got to remember is that comments hey does not receive the accent, where in the feminine singular absolute it does. And that's the distinction that you want to make. Now it's time for you to do exercise 10.